Hello friends, welcome. Jennifer here from the Corporate Canuck, and today we're doing something a little bit different in the videos. I wanted to give you a reality check and a little peek inside my life and my world because I arrived home and I found the beige letter of death. If any of you have received this, you know exactly what it is, and yes folks, I am getting audited. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to have a discussion and a conversation about what it actually means to be audited, what you can do, and if there's things you can actually do now to avoid it. Let's go. So yes, today we are talking all things audit. And I know that word can strike terror into the hearts of most people, but don't worry. I've been through several audits, both personally. I've had audits done on my business, and I've worked with clients on various types of audits, payroll audits and tax audits. And generally speaking, I've come up with some tips and tricks that I think may be hopefully beneficial to you if/when you ever get audited. Now, full disclaimer before we dive in, every tax situation is unique, which means every audit is going to be unique. So if you get stuck, go and seek a tax professional who can look at your whole situation and advise you in the best way to move forward. But I think today we'll share some tips and tricks that will hopefully help get you organized and just help you feel more confident in the event of an audit. Now, with my clients, one of the first questions I get when they receive the brown envelope of death is why? Why am I being audited? Jennifer, I use a tax accountant or I use software ABC. Why am I being audited? And the truth of the matter is, at some point, we probably all will be audited. And the reason for this is that our Canadian tax system is actually really honor-based, meaning that we might get a T4 slip from our employer that we send in, but generally we're telling the government what we made, what tax credits we think we're entitled to, like childcare or transit or education, student loans, that kind of thing. We're telling them what we made. We're telling them what tax credits we have to reduce our taxable income. And generally they just kind of believe us. So it's an honor-based system. But that does mean that every once in a while they're going to poke around and just make sure that people are on the right track. So right off the bat, one of the things that you can do to help yourself is be honest. Don't invent children if you don't have them. Don't invent homes and investment credits if you don't have them. Be honest, because in the event of an audit, you're going to have to back that up. So in terms of why, the number one response is it's going to happen at some point in time. The other thing that I've seen a trend with is if there's a substantial change in your life situation. So let's say you have completely changed jobs, which led to a huge jump in income, or vice versa. You have a reduction in income, or your family situation has changed, or you have acquired a property. Those are considered pretty substantial life changes. And so I see that as a pattern that sometimes there's a little bit of a check-in to make sure that those things are on track and the proper credits and income are being claimed. And then the third thing, which is probably what flagged me, is also submitting on time. Now, I am being audited, actually looking back for 2015, 2016, so that's 3-4 years ago. And I'm not really surprised because I did file late. And because of that, there's a little bit more information that they may want to have. So filing your taxes late can sometimes trigger an audit. And now in the business world, there are many different types of audits as well too. So we've got income taxes, we have payroll taxes, we have GST, HST. Oh, I'm gonna wait, there's an ambulance. Okay, so you've received the letter in the mail. What do you do? Now, I'll say right off the bat that audits can be simple and they can be complex. And really, you're going to be the one who's going to judge how you're going to move forward with the situation. There are lots of tax professionals who deal just with audits. So you can consider that if you're looking at substantial amounts of money or you're just feeling really overwhelmed. Find somebody who does what they do best. Now, the one thing, if you're wanting to dig into this yourself, I'm going to give you a little tip or trick or piece of advice. And this beautiful letter here, you're going to read 3 times. Let's do that, 3 times. The first is read it and panic. Seriously. Because that's the instinct that most of us have when we get these sort of letters or inquiries, is we panic. So read it, get all the willies out, scream, shout, get angry, cry, whatever emotion you have attached to the situation, you need to be able to move past it. So even if it's read it and then let it sit for a day and come back to it, you're just going to come back to it in a much more proactive mindset and be willing to understand it even more. So step 1, read it and get the willies out. Now, step number 2, you're going to read it and look at what categories are being audited. Because there's a few different ones. They can be looking at tax credits, or maybe they want more information on income, or as a small business owner, they could want your accounts receivable. You need to determine what it is exactly that's being audited, because that's going to determine what your next steps are. Now, this lovely letter I got is a pretty form letter with very common categories. So I'm actually being audited, and they're looking at my transit credit as well as my student loan interest paid. Now, luckily, I'm really organized, so it's probably going to take me about an hour to collect it all and scan it and send it. So I'm pretty lucky that way. But when I first opened the letter, I was a little bit terrified because it's 3 pages long. But what they do, because it's a form letter, is they have a bunch of different sections advising you on basically what's needed to support all these different tax categories. But at the very top of the letter, they tell you which categories there are. So there may be instructions for 10 different types of audits, but really they're only looking for certain categories. So make sure to read that letter and get really clear on what categories they're looking at so that you can take the next steps. And then in terms of the next steps, that's where you kind of get a little bit more nitty gritty. And you want to be reading that information to figure out what they are looking for and how they want it. So for example, with the the transit audit that I'm having done, they actually want to see copies of the bus passes. So I'm going to scan my bus passes, I'm going to scan the receipts I have for those bus passes, and then I'm actually going to fax it to the CRA. Now, different audits may let you share information in different ways. For example, you may be able to use My CRA, submit a document service, and scan and submit it online on your online profile with My CRA, which if you don't have, I highly recommend you get. It's fantastic. Or very commonly, they'll ask you to fax things, or they might ask you to mail. Now, if you are mailing something, make sure that you are keeping a copy of it. So scanning it, photocopy, whatever you need, as well as sending it in a trackable method so you can know where it is and when it was delivered. I personally actually really love using my fax because I have a digital fax, which means it's not a big clunky fax machine sitting in my living room. It's all online. So I scan everything and I fax it online, and it gives me the reassurance that it was received as well as date, stamp, and time, and I know exactly when it went through. And I actually have a couple recommendations if you want to explore the online fax. If you're a small business owner and you want to check it out, I will post those in the description below so you can check them out. So yeah, those are the 3 things. You're going to be looking at what is it, what category. You're going to look at how they want it and exactly what they want. And then right off the bat, first read, just read it once, get the willies out, and get ready to move on. So let's say you've read the letter, you've done all these steps, but you're still feeling overwhelmed. What do you do? That's when I would ask people post on Facebook or social media and say, hey, I'm looking for a really great accountant who specializes in audits, and guaranteed probably somebody in your life has been audited and they may have recommendations for you. You could also look through the Chartered Accountants Association in your area, or you can also, if you file taxes on your own, check what's available to you through the software you use. One of the systems that I really love using, and it's actually what I use for my own taxes every year, despite being trained on the CRA system, I still use this one, and it is QuickTax or TurboTax. And I really like it because, especially for small business owners, it gives you a step-by-step question process so that you're making sure you are collecting all the things that you can deduct. And same things for the personal side. It goes through and does a little bit of like, oh, you might actually be able to save money. Were you a student? It asks you questions like that to determine your best tax profile. And also, one of the things I know some of my clients have done as well is they have an audit program. So you can do all of your tax prep and work online. You pay for it online. You pay for the return online. And then there's usually an option to buy an audit package. So they'll help you in the event of an audit. And now this is something that I've recommended to people who are submitting, especially if they're submitting tax returns that reflect a big change in life circumstance. So if they got married or acquired or sold a house, acquired or sold a business, had a major shift in their business, anything that is a little bit more elaborate and could be possibly a flag, some people will then choose to have this audit protection kind of service. So that's worth looking into. If you filed your taxes online, check and see maybe when you did it, you actually selected this audit assurance kind of package. So, check it out. And if not, try and find a tax pro in your neighborhood. Now, the last thing is, how, Jennifer, do I avoid an audit? And the truth of it is that you really can't. There are things that may flag it, such as filing returns late, not paying your taxes. That kind of stuff is a little bit more motivational for the government to follow up on. But anybody who gives you a guarantee that you will never be audited is really full of it. So the best advice that I have, and actually is what's saving my sanity now that I have my letter, is to get organized. It's way harder to try and go back. Like this audit that I'm dealing with now is going back 3-4 years. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, let alone what I spent. So by getting yourself set up and getting organized, it's going to make a world of difference if you ever land in this situation. And chances are you probably will be audited at some point in your life. So one of the tools that I actually like to use is one of these bad boys, accordion files. I love them. They're compact. You can organize them. I usually get the 13 window because I put all my business stuff in there as well. And I posted recently on my website my suggested download of how I like to organize things. And it's just good, smart life choices. When you think about how to adult, this is how you adult. Now, most of us, I think 80% of us throw receipts in shoebox if we even remember to get a receipt. So you take that shoebox stuff, you file it by category, and then it's really easy to find what you need when you need it. And I would recommend, if you can, do this at least every 3 months, but at a minimum, at least once a year, February, March, as you're preparing to file your taxes. So beautiful accordion file. I'll post a link below for my little shopping list of fun things, and you can see the exact ones that I use. So that's really it. Get organized. And then reality check. If you are still waiting, you haven't filed your taxes, now is the time to do them. The longer you wait, the more you're putting yourself at risk, not only to be audited, but you're also going to get late filing fees and interest penalties. And you want to avoid all that. So if you are thinking to yourself, oh, I've got those 3 years I need to catch up on, here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to go and make an appointment with someone. So it can be a tax pro, or it could even be a friend. You're going to pick a date and put it on the calendar as the deadline to get it done. Because if we just wait and wait and wait, then eventually we are going to get flagged. And what happens is the CRA then files a return on your behalf. If you haven't submitted, you have to go back and correct it, and it just gets so messy. So do yourself and your sanity a favor and start that process now. So I'd recommend going to see a tax pro if you're catching up on multiple years, because they'll be able to do it a lot quicker than you will. But at the bottom line, find yourself an accountability buddy who can keep you on track with that filing date. So that's kind of it, gang. I am going to take my lovely letter, and luckily I'm pretty organized. So I think I'm going to put in about an hour's worth of time, tackle this bad boy, and we'll connect again soon. Yeah. So if you get stuck, reach out. Would love to continue this conversation. I wish you all the best in your finance adventures, and hopefully we'll be able to connect again soon on a much happier note. Bye for now.